I was sent a cancer map of the world in the year 2016. And Australia was number 1, and then I think the United States was number 2. And generally the most affected areas were the industrialized developed countries. So that's the puzzle to work out, isn't it? Someone I know suggested that in Australia, all the grains are harvested with glyphosate. And I've seen that word a lot associated with Monsanto and their products. And we all are eating a lot of grains. So there's many, we don't know why the cancer is so large, but it's frightening to see that in our prosperous developed countries, they're the worst hit. If English is your mother tongue, like it is with me, we're way down the rabbit hole. We're already New World Order protégés. We've already been disenfranchised from nature, instincts, tradition, history. It's all been taken away from us. We can sublimate them with rituals, superstitions, but they've well and truly taken us out of our destiny. And that's what they're trying to do to the rest of the world. And that's why they're bombing them, creating refugees. I heard this story in Boise, in Idaho. Somebody went into some low-cost housing which sheltered refugees from Syria, Iraq, etc., and killed. Well, apparently went with a vendetta against an Iraqi refugee who had been housing the man, but the details aren't so important. But he wasn't there, the man they went for, so he went to a children's party next door and stabbed all these children and mothers and things. And as the story unfolds, you discover, well, the families were separated, the father's still in Turkey or somewhere, and one of the 3-year-old baby who was having a birthday party actually died. But as you delve and learn about the status of the people there, you discover, in large measure, the families have been separated. Only half of the family has been allowed to migrate. And disenfranchising us, keeping us weak and vulnerable, and then, you can manipulate people. There's a whole facilitation going on about this, and there's numerous articles saying the same thing, that this mass refugee crisis has been orchestrated. And my greatest evidence of it is that the defense minister in Britain, calls himself a Jew, at the time of the Iraq War, overseeing the bombing of Iraq, is now overseeing a $500 million budget to resettle these refugees, mostly in America. And the penny doesn't drop. We should all be up in arms about it. Instead, people are busy hating the refugees. They're victims. They've been bombed and uprooted. Well, I can't keep saying the same thing, but it's also applicable to every facet of our lives. It's not just about these refugees arriving. It's everything else. And of course, you feel it in your neighborhoods, you feel it in your communities, and I'm all for. I've actually grown up in a multicultural world. I wouldn't know where I belonged if I wasn't in one. I also grew up in America, but it extends to visas. People ask me about visa requirements out here and stuff, and I remember when Vietnam was, pretty anti-American. It was still recovering from the war. It was, if you like North Korea, pariah state, and then suddenly it sort of started to open up. Same thing happened with China, and the news coverage changes, but also the visa requirements change. And if you're married to a Vietnamese lady anyway, you can get a 5-year visa for $25. And these are actual policies, that affect the social cohesion, the demographics of the country. And I guess it is partly imposed upon them when they open up and do these trade deals. I've no doubt that these issues are raised and of equal importance. And I've always felt that, for argument's sake, I'm English and I apply for a visa requirement somewhere, and the country tells me what it is. it's actually in agreement with my government how long I'm allowed to stay or etc. You know, I think it's more reciprocal than we're made aware of, that it's our own governments dictating what visas we're allowed to have in other countries. I feel that that's how it really works. But it's extraordinary. So now, of course, you've got lots of foreigners coming out to Vietnam, but certainly here in Cambodia, which they don't give you that option, by the way. But there are different perks, if you like. But it's all about this new world that's altering, changing right in front of our eyes. And we're going to have to ride the wave. But the environment will collapse and the health will collapse on the journey. But the journey is going to be high-tech, looking at screens, being a bit nerve-wracking, and we're going to have to get a bit happy about it. Yeah, there's a big Pride Day in London. My God, it's going to be one of the biggest Pride days you can imagine. Pride, for some reason, is associated with gay. Okay, this has been imposed upon us. And so they're having a gay Pride parade in London, and I saw that in one of the Islamic news outlets that I look at. They were no doubt obliged to publicize it. You dare not do anything else in London, in Britain. And the same is true in America, I'm sure. And the Muslim mayor is also saying it's a marvelous thing, all these same-sex relationships parading themselves around the city. I think it's a sign of the end. You know, most people feel uncomfortable in the presence of gay people. And you could make a distinction. You could say there are homosexuals, same-sex relationships that keep it quiet, keep it to themselves and get on with their lives. But there's another type of gay identity that's busy advertising it and putting it in your face. And people feel uncomfortable about it. And they're all too often given jobs of importance, heads of protest groups, or, you know, bosses in companies. And we're all made to have to go through this feeling uncomfortable. But we're living through a population expanding and the wealth contracting in terms of how many people have it is less and less people. And we're being turned into a situation of lords and serfs, which is old English for how things used to be when we had a manor and it was virtual slavery. But the disparity between the rich and the poor now is far bigger than it used to be. There used to be a middle class that had influence as well. It's pretty much being wiped out. Again, I'd say intentionally, not because things are out of control. What we're witnessing throughout the world is pretty much by design and intentional. We're led to believe it's evolving naturally in these ways. I think Syria is just wiping out the opposition now down at the south, near Dara, near the Jordanian border. Yeah, and then they'll turn their sights on Idlib. And the Americans are building a huge consulate in Erbil in northern Iraq in the Kurdish area. So the Kurds are playing everyone against each other, and the war will fester and continue. But while the Syrians are attacking down south, and the Russians and Syrians are doing a lot of bombing, there's also American jets apparently in the skies and Israeli jets in the skies, and they're not firing anything, but they are ready, apparently. Israel controls it all, you know, and it was pretty much a Zionist plot that caused all the trouble in Syria. It wasn't part of the Arab Spring, but now they've bombed all these places, and the refugees are being moved out, and millions of people from Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, all by design. So I don't know what they're going to be left to think about when it's all over. You know, they'll make peace agreements, and spies will be turned in, government ministers will be announced to have died, and you know, the ones that have colluded, and it will be a very ugly story. I talked about Russia yesterday, Russia and Germany, because Hitler came up in conversation, and you know, Stalin also kept the Soviet Union a little bit intact and removed from Jewish influence. But people say that he was assassinated, and it kind of holds water. And we all know how demonized everyone is that refuses the US dollar as a reserve currency. It might actually come to a big war over this issue, because it seems to be approaching that the US dollar will lose its reserve status. And it's the only reason that America seems to be able to continue, is because everything is being traded in US dollars. There's this new browser out called Brave Browser. It really looks impressive. I've yet to really take it on board, but it's got a blockchain incorporated in it, and that in itself is a strength. It's also got a way to donate to the websites you visit. You've got to register, and it's, I guess, a cryptocurrency. It's their own BAT, B-A-T. But anyway, it is probably going to grow and grow and grow. And I think they've already got millions of downloads. And it blocks all ads. So if you're curious, but almost all the browsers now run on the Chrome engine. So it's probably true for Brave. It looks similar. And even Skype uses Google's engine, you know, Google's Hangout engine or something. Open source is now the way to go. I've nothing more to say. We're all chasing money. It's terrible. I think you can be hypocritical. You can chase money and also wish for a fairer environment, which probably means adopting some Islamic laws, which they say you take all or nothing, really. But they also say that everyone was born a Muslim. So they're not converting anybody. People revert back to how they were born. And I heard the Sheikh talk about the ancients in the Old Testament times, referred to them as Muslims, I think. Anyway, I'm out of my depth. Please help with donations if you can. It's ever so difficult. I was taking loads of painkillers for the gout. That's over. Maybe I'm more level-headed, but I've got to get up into my fighting spirit again. Please help with donations if you can. Anything to any of the links in the description or on the screen. If you're in England, my British bank account actually is free. There's no PayPal charges. And I guess it's anonymous. I guess you could be traced. I don't know.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the 6th of July 2018. The time now is 1:56 p.m. Eastern Time. Sorry, trying to get comfortable. And I just wanted to do this video regarding what's been happening for the last few days with the situation in Portland and in other rallies where Antifa has been attacking Trump supporters and anybody wearing a Trump hat or anything to do with Trump. Trump supporters need to be very careful. If you're gonna go out there and you're gonna face the Antifa, you know that they're protected by the police. You guys already know this. That's why the police is standing down. They're not doing anything to protect the Trump supporters. This was known a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So, sorry, my coffee. If you're gonna go out there, expect that there's gonna be some type of confrontation, okay? And by the way, you leftist, you're using batons and you're using metal pipes to hit people that are not armed, because, you know, in Portland, they're their gun laws are different than the rest of the country. You guys are using mace. You're attacking innocent people walking in crowds, women and children. It's been recorded, videotaped. The mainstream media is covering your ass. But everybody out here understands who the fuck you are. Okay? Now, a few days ago, before July 4th, you guys came at people walking down the street, Trump supporters, with police batons. You know, those metal bars that break bones, and you tried to break people's bones and hit them over the head with it. What happened to one of your little faggoty ass Antifa boys? He got the fuck knocked out of him. The video's going viral. He wanted to go hit somebody over the head with a metal pipe, and guess what happened? The guy blocked and knocked him the fuck out. That's what's gonna happen to you motherfuckers. Keep on coming at people, innocent people walking down the street that have a different political point of view as you, and keep on trying to hurt them and break their heads open. You're gonna get fucking smashed up like you just did in Portland a few days back. And everybody out there that hasn't seen the video, go look at it. These little bitch ass Antifa fucking little punks hitting people that are just walking by, trying to start some shit, covering your faces and putting masks on, and then hitting people, trying to hit people with metal pipes and metal sticks. Your little boy got knocked the fuck out, didn't he? Bitch ass little punk bitch. And the guy that defended himself is the one that went to jail. Ain't that funny? And the cop's standing right there. You guys want a civil war? You're gonna lose, man. You are gonna lose. You don't get it, do you? You think you're protected by the cops. You think you're protected by the government. Whoever's the rogue part of the government. But what's gonna happen? Yeah, you're gonna burn buildings and you're gonna do all this. But when the libertarians and people that are not like you, and even liberals, because I'm a liberal, when we cross that line and we don't see ourselves going back, we're gonna smash your fucking head in. And I'm sorry for my regular folks out there, religious folk, peaceful folk, people that do meditation, whatever you do, Buddhism, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be cursing. You little punk ass, little fake ass, little bitch ass socialist communists that don't even know what the fuck that is because you never lived under it. You little punks are gonna have your fucking head smashed in. Do you understand? Do you understand that somebody's gonna come with a fucking the same stick, that metal stick you tried to swing at those people walking by and you were hitting them with? That same metal stick is gonna be taken from you and they're gonna break your head open. They're gonna break your head open, bro. You're not gonna be protected for long. You're not. That's why you gotta be with a crew of 4 or 40 or 50. So you can hide behind your other friends and let them get hit, you little bitches. And by the way, patriots, since you're gonna go out there, you guys, you want a war. I see that. You know, everybody's got an ego. I told you guys, let these little bitch ass people go ahead and break windows and burn down places. But you guys, I understand, you can't let this happen, but you should let it happen. That was my suggestion to you guys. Allow these little punks to be seen by the rest of America, the rest of the world, to be seen hitting innocent people, so then everybody turns on them. The media is not going to have a choice than to actually report that they were hitting girls, boys, mothers, children. That's what we want. We want the rest of the public to see who is behind these kids or these men that act like they're fucking 12 years old. 40-year-old men acting like they're 12. But I see you guys, you want to when you want to stand for freedom and you want to stand out there and not allow these people to, shut you down. I get that. But my suggestion would be not to go to these places. Let them burn down Portland and let the fucking people from Portland fucking rise up. Let the people from that local area demand the police do something about this shit and demand the governor do something. Because if you confront these paid, these funded, you guys call them terrorists. No, they're fucking provocateurs. They're intelligence agencies tools that are being funded through the foundations. We know this. It's been going on since forever. The Black Bloc, all these motherfuckers are the same. They're all the same. And people try to say the anarchists are different than the black bloc, and then, you know, they're different than the communists, they're different than the... Nah, bitches, they're all the same. They all get funding from the same fucking person or the same fucking people. Doesn't matter what their idea, what they think their ideology is. They're getting the same money from the top dogs. Anyways, patriots, libertarians, liberals. I know there's a lot of liberals out there that are fucking fed up with this bullshit too. You motherfuckers need to stand up and be like, you know what? You fucking left communist motherfuckers are fucking retarded and making us, not even making us look bad. It's you're making people that are not like you be grouped into you. Because the left is not liberal. Okay? The left, the communist socialist left is fascist. That's what Nazis were. Fascist socialist. Socialism, yes, the Nazis were socialist. Sorry to, you know, burst your fucking bubble, but that's what they were. So, liberals, real classical liberals, real liberals that have that are entrepreneurs, that actually don't believe in communism and socialism, those liberals need to fucking stand the fuck up and say, you fucking pieces of shit over here in this corner, stay in your fucking corner. We're not you. Okay? You guys need to stand up. You guys need to go out there and say, hey, these motherfuckers don't represent us. Because they don't. Okay? You guys are going to go out there, libertarians, centrists to whatever, and now Democrats are joining the conservatives because they don't want to be part of this bullshit either. Everybody that's going out there that believes in free speech, that believes that, you know, you have the right to fucking walk down the street without being harassed because of your political ideology or political views, or because you support a particular candidate, all you guys, you better be prepared, because these guys are allowed to create chaos and mayhem. Trust it. The government, meaning the local governments that don't agree with Trump, are allowing these events to happen. And they're telling the police departments to stand down. And the police are in collusion with the local politicians. Period. 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 So you are going to get these Antifa bitches are going to hit you with fucking metal rods. These Antifa bitches are going to cut you with knives like they've been doing for the last year and a half. These Antifa bitches are going to jump you and going to hit women like they have been and punch women in the face like they have been. And all you little bitch ass women from the left that you think you're all men, you're going to get punched in the face if you get in the middle. You throw a punch, you're going to get a punch by a man or a woman. Trust it. You're going to get it. So everybody out there, hey, ladies, you're going to go to these rallies? And I'm talking about the women that believe in free speech, and you're going to be hanging out with the patriots and libertarians and anybody that believes in free speech. You better get prepared. You better wear padding. You better wear helmets. And you better be packing. Because these little men from the Antifa side, they don't respect women at all. They don't give a fuck. They make pretend that they represent a particular group and that they believe in women's rights. No, they don't. Because I've seen video after video them punching women in the face and hitting them with bars, metal bars, over the head. Okay, so they don't respect women. Trust it, they don't respect. They're there for a reason, is to create chaos. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you, patriots, you're going to throw a punch, make sure that shit lands, and make sure you knock these fucking little bitches out. All right? You're going to throw punches, knock them the fuck out. If you're going to go to jail, you better go to jail for doing it. Really doing it. Not for being in a scuffle, but knock them bitches out, like that viral video. That dude, yo, I give props to you. I hope you get out of jail if you're not out of jail already. I give props to you. There needs to be more of those dudes out there. If they swing at you with a metal bar and you block it, make sure that punch right in the fucking jaw, knock them the fuck out. Every single one of them. And when you're coming into a crew of 20 black hooded little bitches, make sure you got a crew of 20. Don't go into a crew of 5, 10, 15 and it's only 2 of you. Don't do it. Because they got metal bars and they got knives and they're stabbing people. So if you see a crew, make sure you go get your crew. If this is how it's gonna go down, it's gonna go down. But make sure you have your crew. And fucking make sure that you land those punches, guys. You're gonna go to jail anyway. Make sure you land the punch in the temple or break that jaw. Because they want a civil war. They're not gonna go away. Give it to them. If you're gonna be out there and you're gonna, you're not gonna do what I told you guys to do, where you're gonna back off and let them burn the town down, then you're gonna go to jail. Make sure you land those punches. Make sure you land those punches. And those leftist girls that be throwing them metal rods, fog of war. Girls, you're gonna get hit in the face. You want to act like men? You think that nobody's gonna punch you back when you hit them with a bottle or a metal rod? Guess what? You're gonna get punched in the face. So, and everybody else, all the women on this side, my suggestion to you is don't go to these rallies. Don't get involved. But if you're gonna go to the rallies and you're gonna get involved, make sure you have protection. Make sure you have pads. Make sure you have a helmet. Because these Antifa little faggoty ass men are hitting women and are punching women in the face. So you better pack, and you better get prepared to get attacked, because they're attacking families that have nothing to do with anything. They're just, they're wearing a Trump support hat or whatever. So they're going after the easy targets. Easy targets are families with babies and women. Just letting you know. And anybody out there that doesn't think that the Civil War is on, and that doesn't think that the Democrats were calling for it, you guys are a bunch of fucking morons. Wake the fuck up. And by the way, the Civil War is starting here. Every single country is going to have a civil war. In the next 10 years, every single country, from the United States to all of Europe, is going into civil war. So everybody gear up, because it's going to happen. And that's straight up. All right. Talk to you guys later. Be safe. They're going to come at us again. They're going to do some fucking false flag. On July 4th, a dude was trying to blow up, I don't know if it was a bridge in Cleveland. A terrorist, American lefty terrorist was trying to blow up something in Cleveland, and the police and the FBI stopped it. So yeah, these people mean business. Don't get it twisted. Okay? These elites are funding this civil war. They're funding these little punk ass American terrorists. So get prepared, because it's coming. Guys, my religious folk, pray. I know you don't like violence. Pray, pray, pray that this shit comes down. Pray.
Hey everybody, my name is Matt. This video is not for subscribers, and it's really not for people that know this channel or know me. I'm going to tell you why I'm making this video, which is about the Mandela effect, and everything that I know about it I want to present in a way or in an attempt to help people. People are really struggling with this. So let me tell you what happened, and I think I can present certain things in a certain way to the people that are really struggling with this to help them a bit. Now, there's a channel called Vanessa Space VA, and this person, I don't know them. All I know is about 2 or 3 days ago, I came across a video series. It's like 25 parts. It's called Fearful and Angry Mandela Effect Testimonies. And I don't know, maybe I've seen 5 or 6 at this point. But people are really struggling with this. And I think I know why. And I think I can shed some light on some things that will help people. Now, number one, there's a lot of people that watch this channel that don't like this topic. I've heard it all. I'm well aware of it. I'm well aware that we're all misremembering. No need to watch this video. We'll get back to exposing reality in other areas, breaking down the fraud of this world in other videos. So this one's not for you. But if you're Mandela affected, I hope you will stick with me and watch this. So when I'm watching the testimonies, people are pretty shook up. Okay, people are pretty shook up, and the way she puts these clips together, it is very helpful for people to see that there are other people in the same boat. So she did a nice job with the series. But here's one thing that I want to say why my experience with the Mandela effect is completely different than these people. I'm what you would call a reality junkie. I talk about Greg from Exploring the Rabbit Hole, who I confide with, who I say, hey, Greg, do you notice this? Do you see this? Am I interpreting this correctly? I bounce ideas off him and vice versa. We are what you would call reality junkies. So for me, for 5 years investigating, for lack of better words or the broad brush term, investigating the fraud of this world. Basically, when you look at anything closely, things are not what they seem. And again, I kind of alluded to the fact that I want to get this video out to this group of people that are struggling with the Mandela effect. I don't mean to make you even more depressed right off the bat, but I just want to explain why I'm taking this much differently than these people, or you are if you're one of these people struggling. So if you're knee deep in seeing that what CNN is presenting to you is for the most part not the way things are really occurring, we'll leave it at that. Like the JFK assassination, for example. That's conspiracy kindergarten level. Obviously a little man named Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill Kennedy, and then the shocking nature of what this world really is, or what a government really is, just goes from there. So I don't mean to make you even more depressed, but when you've seen this stuff and in the very sinister nature of it for 5 years, and like me, you're actually starting to get a little bogged down and depressed, then this thing, the Mandela effect, pops up. And it was actually invigorating for me. It almost brought, for lack of better words, purpose back to my life. Or it opened up avenues and looking at reality and existence in a way that I didn't look at before. It opened up a whole new door, channel, tunnel, whatever you want to call it. So I absolutely welcomed this thing called the Mandela effect. The difference is the people that are getting hit over the head with the Mandela effect weren't hardcore, calloused truth investigators like I was. They just went to their elementary school to teach 3rd grade, and reality was this on Monday, and they had a major Mandela anchor effect on Tuesday. Then they investigated and found out they have more what I would call anchor effects, things that really hit close to home. An anchor effect is something you know has changed or was different in your old reality. I don't like those terms, but we'll use those terms for now. Excuse me. No, sorry, that was not one-eye symbolism. It's called a scratch. My anchor effect, the first one was Interview with a Vampire. I saw this thing called Mandela effect floating around, but I was investigating other aspects of reality, and eventually I said, what is this? I need to look at a few videos. And that one came up pretty quickly, and I went, I know 100% the movie was called Interview with a Vampire. I just know that. I've seen it many times. Then of course, in my investigation, I saw Tom Cruise call it that, and the awards and the show call it that. So the residuals now are off the charts. We don't need to convince anybody anymore. So if this video can find those regular people that weren't investigating all the sinister elements of this world like I was, people that now that are really struggling with what is absolutely mind-boggling and mystical, I'm hoping what I share here helps you, at least in a few ways. So number one, the basics. This thing is absolutely real. Many of us are still at the phase where we have to keep trying to convince ourselves because others don't see it. It's absolutely real. That being said, about 90% of the people that you interact with will never see it. So we need to stop trying to convince them. It's pointless, and it's not that they're being stubborn. It could be as simple as literally in their reality, these things never happened. So we need to stop thinking of them as being closed-minded or stubborn or obtuse, or it's more likely with the way this works that it's not that they don't see what was. It never was for these people. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I start talking and I didn't do the nose hairs recently and they start itching. Sorry. It never was. Okay. So for years I got frustrated with a lot of people, and you get frustrated, and that needs to stop, because it's almost like when they say, we need to, somebody that's been victimized in a certain way. People say that the healing is when you forgive them. I never like that either, but it's the same. We need to have the same sort of mentality. Forgive the people around you, because they didn't experience what you did. Now, there are two options here, and I'll get to the second option in a moment. It relates to the download, actually witnessing people take the download. Some of you know what I'm talking about, some of you don't. But, I mean, when I presented to a family member The Lion and the Lamb, I mean, I'm not religious. I as a kid, I'm dragged into a church begrudgingly for midnight mass. I mean, I didn't grow up in it. I've read Bible passages, but I never sat down to read the Bible. It's just not part of my upbringing, and it's not part of who I am now. But even for crying out loud, I thought everybody knows The Lion and the Lamb. I mean, that's as given as, who's on the quarter right now? Who's on the face of a quarter? George Washington? It's as simple as that. Who does the cat Sylvester chased after? Well, Tweety Bird. Everybody knows that. What if it was Sylvester chased after a little rodent named Adrian? It's as shocking as that. Well, everybody knows The Lion and the Lamb. So I present this to family members, and they go, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and they go, okay, well, it makes sense. Like, they just don't see it. And there's only two possibilities. Again, likely they, in some way, you could say, come from a reality where it has always been the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. Excuse me, it just keeps happening. The other possibility is the download. So before I get ultra conspiratorial what the download may be, some of you have witnessed this, some of you have not. I have a personal account of it, a few, but one really stands out. And there are, if you look in the right places on YouTube, people generally will talk about this hundreds and hundreds of times. So my best buddy, I was best man at his wedding, and he knows me that I'm a conspiracy theorist, and oh boy, so he doesn't like to talk to me about any of this stuff, and we've experienced that on the conspiracy side. No one will talk to you about anything; they just shut down. I think that's a little different than what's going on here with the Mandela effect. So you give him the standard list. Have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? No. Can I ask you 5 questions? Sure. Interview with blank vampire. Okay, he'll say a vampire. Life is like a box of chocolates. He gets that right. If you build it, they will come. He gets that right. Right. He gets it right, meaning the way many of the affected remember. So he's giving all the answers the way you would say, we want him, or I would want him to give the answers. Oh, you remember too. And then he says, what's this Mandela effect? And, oh, Matt, yeah, you're a conspiracy theorist. So he tied it into the past discussions I've had with him about conspiracy theory. And then something happened. He went, well, actually, I've been thinking about it, and I think it was, I'm going to change my answer. I think it's, if you build it, he will come. And I think it's life was like a body. So then he changed all of his answers. And I said to a neighbor of mine who likes talking about this and the conspiracy, but he doesn't see all of it. He's just open-minded. And I said, he's taking the download. And he's like, yeah, you've talked about that. He changed all of his answers. It was almost like an antenna came out of his head and he picked up some sort of Wi-Fi signal, some sort of mind control. Or he synced, at that moment, he synced onto the new reality where we have never synced onto it, completely synced onto it. So I'll try to talk about that a little bit later. So there is only two possibilities: that this stuff has never existed, but if you believe or you've witnessed the download in person, then it is actually more likely that these things have existed. There was called a quantum ripple, a ripple in reality of some kind, like we've saw gravity waves from the movie Event Horizon or something like that, where it rippled over. And I know this is poison, but this was black and red, and here comes the reality ripple. And now it's blue and white. And I remember clearly it was black and red. Clearly remember Coke Zero, that apparently never existed. Nobody could ever, there's no picture anywhere that exists of people in their backyard with Coke Zero. It's Coca-Cola Zero. That's a pretty big Mandela effect for me. But the people, the reality ripple, they pick up the can and it's blue and white. Their reality, their brain or their consciousness merges with the new reality at that moment, or it potentially could be done later, because I've witnessed what I call the download. And upon that download, I saw him right in front of my eyes change all of his answers. So the point number one is there's no point in getting frustrated with anybody, and forgive them, or I want to say feel sorry for them, but that's not what I mean. Just have that empathy or sympathy towards them. Just that approach is more helpful, instead of, how are you so obtuse you can't see what I mean, just the arguments. There's no point in it, and you can't fight the quantum nature of this existence is far, far bigger than anything we possibly can imagine. There's no point in it. So that's number one. In terms of understanding the nature of it, some of the key points I've talked about in the past is only about 10% can see it, 90% it never existed, and it truly never existed for them. But within our own community, we don't see eye to eye on many things. Dan over at Scarab Performance can say something, and I'll just say, no, it absolutely always was a certain way for me, and I totally disagree. So even amongst ourselves, we disagree. And that kind of, it just adds evidence that in some way there are multiple realities, or people talk about the multiverse. You would think that, okay, if we're dealing about a change here and one potential path, then those that see the Mandela effect we would be in sync on almost everything, and we really aren't at all. So the point of this, and I've tried to ask people to do this in the past, you go into a crime scene as a detective, as Sherlock Holmes, and use whatever little bits of evidence we have if you want to try to figure this thing out, and write down the evidence. What do we know for sure? And then you could use that at least to eliminate what's not causing it. Like the old standard, it's got to be CERN or it's got to be D-Wave. It's got to be CERN or it's got to be D-Wave. Look, CERN, there's some absolutely bizarre things happening at CERN. And could it be influencing it or causing it? Sure, it could be. But it's too quick as the default reason. And most people just pull that up first. And it certainly isn't going to be that simple, in my opinion. And D-Wave, to me, I'm not even sure that's real. I don't mean to throw you for a loop with crazy talk, but I've looked closely at D-Wave, and it's not all that it seems. All right, just leave it at that. That clown Geordie Rose giving his little presentations. Trust me, I've looked closely at it, and it could be CERN. I don't think it's D-Wave. Again, Geordie Rose didn't take me on a personal tour in the back of his black box called D-Wave, so I can't say for sure. That just doesn't add up to me, some of the things he says about what that quantum computer is, or quantum computing in general. Anyway, so you look at the evidence that it leaves, and one of the major bits of evidence is the new reality is almost always inferior. I'm going to take credit for this one. I pushed this out in the community a few years back, and I'm surprised it isn't a bigger, it didn't stick. I mean, because it's the greatest fingerprint we have into figuring this thing out. In almost all cases, new reality is inferior, or at least the same, but it's never better. I'll give you an example. My favorite example is Jaws. Here come, he's chumming, not paying attention. Oh, here comes Jaws. Goes into the old sea captain, and he says, "You're going to need a bigger boat." What? You're all out in the foxhole together, and if Jaws gets pissed in about 30 seconds, you're all going to die together. We're going to need a bigger. These writers are brilliant. Okay, they would not make that mistake in writing Jaws. The old captain, he's just a hired gun. He doesn't give a shit whether they open those beaches back again. He's just, oh yeah, you want to charter my boat? I'll take these two assholes out. And the guy from Close Encounters, he's a real asshole to the sea captain. He doesn't give a shit. What do you mean you're going to need a bigger boat? I would say, what do you mean me? I mean, I don't give a, bigger boat. This is my boat. Fuck off. So nobody would write it that way. It's inferior. Okay, and life wasn't like anything. Life is a timeless concept. And then he talks about what you're going to get. Well, if it was, you're talking about the future and the past in the same sentence. I know he was retarded, but that was the profound sentence or statement of the entire movie. So you're not going to write it like that. Plus, we have images, or we actually have behind-the-scenes filming of Tom Hanks saying "is." So we need to stop trying to prove it to others, but we need to stop trying to prove it to ourselves as well. It's 100% real. Let's just move forward. Whenever we keep trying to prove it to ourselves or to doubt ourselves, and this, of course, it's so monumental, it's so big that, of course, the self-doubt is never-ending engine. It just generates that. It can't be right. You must be misremembering. That needs to stop. Let's exercise that demon today, moving forward. Now, if you're a Mandela Effect channel, it's for real. But most of the regular people that I saw suffering at fearful and angry Mandela Effect testimonies, they're going to continue to have self-doubt. It will always linger until it's exercised. It's real. It's 100%. Let's move on. Forget about if your neighbor and your aunt can't see it. Well, they can't see it, no matter what you believe the reason for that is. And about taking the download. I mean, the download could be like a reality ripple that they're now synced to the new reality. Or, I mean, it could simply be, well, I was going to say it almost seems like some sort of mind control, but I don't want the Mandela Effect is a quantum change. I mean, it's some sort of an effect that goes right to the very nature or engine of reality itself. It's not people in a back room in Langley and CIA doing this or that. It's at the very minimum, it is it's off-world or magic or mystical, or it's something that is beyond the scope of any man to figure out or cause. No group of mad scientists are sitting around, able to make these sort of quantum changes. It's just bigger than that. So you really have to look in the craziest places for the answer. But my personal story with the Mandela Effect is, again, I was invigorated by it. It opened whole new avenues for me to investigate about the very nature of reality itself. And as I've investigated these areas, I've become much more positive on a lot of different things, because all I was looking is the dark aspects of what's this little George Bush creature? What was his role in this or that? What's he doing? Who does he really report to? What entity, whether human or not, takes that little George Bush creature over his knee and spanks him if he does bad? And then here comes that little puppet, Barack Obama, and who, that little entity needs to be punished a little bit differently. But he, so I was looking at all that, and as you look at that, it becomes darker and darker and darker. So then here comes the Mandela effect. It's like, whoa, there's something far more powerful that makes all these little minions running around trying to control our lives look like little assholes when we were so fearful of them in the past. There are things far, far greater by a magnitude of a million. So it was invigorating to me. And for lack of better words, I'll say give my life purpose. But that, you know what I mean. And it just was a nice wow. So in trying to help people, all the areas that I've been investigating regarding the nature of reality itself, our existence here. What is it for? What do we? And of course, if you are a classic Christian, these areas are not going to resonate with you, but they did with me. So it opened up a whole set of new ideas and concepts, and all of them were very, well, not all of them were very, but many of them were very uplifting. So although you find the theme that, again, the smartest people on this planet will come forth and say that we are immortal soul spirit beings that are literally like the truth exposed in the movie Avatar, literally occupying some sort of avatar body on this 3D material plane for whatever reason. Some call it a prison, some call it a learning experience or a school. So the good news, and all of it resonated with me, that consciousness potentially somewhere else. We're here in these avatars. The brain is nothing but a conduit or translation device. So your real sense of self, or your essence, or your spirit can interact with this ridiculous little 3D realm where everybody's running around trying to get new Corvettes, large fries, and a blowjob, and that's pretty much the extent of success in this little idiot 3D realm with George Bush running around and other idiots like Donald Trump. Once you see all this, and all that petty politics stuff becomes an absolute joke. I wish I had stronger words, because that's not doing it justice. So you see the fraud of this world almost instantly. But I was going to say the smartest people in this world again say you're an immortal spirit that is likely the consciousness you think is between the ears or behind the eyes. It's somewhere else. It's just the brain, the ego is, you could say, a conduit. It allows, it's a portal that allows consciousness to interact on this plane. And when you really think that stuff through, it resonates. Inner truth, inner knowing. It's true. At the movie Avatar, there's truth in movies, lies in the news. Quote my friend Russian Vids. Was the first one to come up with that. I don't know where he got it from, but when I first heard him say that 3 or 4 years ago, I thought he was absolutely crazy. And I know that is absolutely a statement of truth. The truth of reality is revealed through art, media, movies, even The Simpsons. The lies come through the news. It is just the opposite, the truth of this reality, than what they say it is or what you were led to believe it was or is. So I know the Russian Vids comment will trigger a lot of people to make a comment. No matter who you believed him to be or not to be, I'm well aware of it. Let it go, please. What was I talking about? The truth in movies via the Avatar. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Because before the movie Avatar, it goes back to the ancient Gnostic texts. The smartest people that have ever lived. I mean, it goes back to Plato's allegory of the cave, illusory reality. That we are much more than this. It's like renting a car at Hertz or Avis. We're just renting this avatar, and so you investigate these things, and the fear of death is there is no fear of death. Of course, if you are a very convicted Christian, I would assume you have the same lack of fear of death. But what I was going to say, the negative aspect of investigating some of these hardcore, reality principles is some people say, well, yeah, we are immortal spirits and souls, but we're basically recycled into this realm or planet over and over and over again, like a reincarnation recycling soul trap where something has hijacked this reality and it won't let us connect back to what some people call our higher self or other aspects of ourself that may be somewhere else. I mean, these are big concepts and I only understand a small percentage of it. It's almost like the concept I presented a few months back in a video, like the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows 1 and 2, Horcrux, Voldemort, the evil wizard has put aspects of himself, his soul, in various items. If you've seen the movies, that Harry and Ron and whatever, they go and find the items and destroy each item, and that's one more piece of Voldemort's soul that doesn't exist. So it's almost like we've been, and I said in this video, Horcruxed. We are cut off, and some aspect of ourself is here, some aspect of ourself is somewhere else potentially, and it can't find its way home. This concept resonates with a lot of people. Now, I know I've strayed from the Mandela effect, but the point was, when you see the Mandela effect, every bit of reality needs to be questioned, and we just start from scratch. Everything we learned, we will Yoda unlearn. Everything needs to be thrown out and start over. But when you throw everything out and start over, it's very empowering in many regards. The recycle soul trap or the Saturn moon matrix, that's very depressing. However, the people that I've listened to that resonate with me, even if that is correct, almost all the smart people I've come across say there's a way out, a way to break free of this 3D existence on this planet that has now been corrupted, whether it can be done in one lifetime, 2, 10, or whether any of that is true or not. We can break free. There is a way out. And so the point is, the Mandela effect leads into all these different areas that to me are just fascinating, and I would have never gone into these places. I just wouldn't have. So I'm thrilled about the Mandela effect. I'm thrilled. And it's not all trivial stuff with the Mandela effect either. It's not, a line in a movie. I mean, to me, one of the biggest ones was Australia. Just sitting in boring high school classes and junior high, there's always a map. I mean, always a map in these classrooms, and just staring at the map or looking around. Or I got good grades, but I just was so bored by most of it. And one day somebody floated the Mandela effect about Australia, and I looked at it and this looks ridiculous to me. This looks absolutely ridiculous that it's on the same line of longitude as most of Brazil. Longitude or latitude? Latitude, sorry. As most of Brazil. Land down under. It's smushed up into Papua New Guinea. So let's just do the Australia exercise, because again, these are clues if anybody truly wants to try to figure this out the way I've been trying and others have been trying. So to the Mandela effect at Australia looks ridiculous, smushed up under Papua New Guinea. We just remember this continent like 1,000 miles south, all by itself. Even like during the MH, what is it, that Malaysian flight that supposedly disappeared, or whether that's real or not, it doesn't matter. Even then I don't remember Australia being all smushed up. Like, it was so much expanse to cover to look for this plane. And whenever, I don't know the year in that, but one day somebody brought it to my attention online, and I just went, that's ridiculous. But the clues about the Mandela effect in terms of figuring it out is, you'd say, well, how does Australia have all these indigenous species that aren't anywhere else in the world if the final island to Papua New Guinea is 5 miles away? Without the little island chain, it's 90 miles. Well, that's a joke. Many, many birds could make that. There's just, it has its own fish even. It has its own birds. It has its own lizards. There's just no way there'd be that many. I'm using the word indigenous. There's a better term for an animal that just is in one place and nowhere else. Catalina Island off of California has animals that are just there and nowhere else. And that's, that's off the shore of California. It's not nearly like Australia, where they say there's just an endless variety of birds and plants and this and that. But that's what I found out when I first started investigating this Mandela effect. Maybe all of that is being scrubbed from reality, because it couldn't have all of that indigenous stuff if it's only the 90 miles without the islands, 5 miles with the islands. Papua New Guinea has a completely different jungle-like environment and climate. How, if it's 5 miles? And the people there look like black Africans, the Rwandans, for example. That's why it's called New Guinea, Papua New Guinea. The people there, the tribal people, you can't distinguish from black Africans from Somalia or Rwanda. It's similar. They look a little different, but they don't look like Australian Aborigines. They don't look like that. So why didn't they interbreed? If it's only 5 miles and you can go island hopping, one of those tribesmen could swim to Australia if he used the islands. Literally. You would have an interbreeding that would have happened tens of thousands of years ago between some groups of Papua New Guinea, who easily can row their boats down, sail their boats down, and row their canoes down, and the Aborigines would have come up. There would have been interbreeding. You have you're talking about literally 5 mile difference. Maybe it's 15 or something. I think it's 5 if you use the island chain. But you have two groups of humans that would have had to have been isolated for minimum hundreds of thousands of years to look as different as they do. It only makes sense if Australia was by itself in the middle of nowhere. Why did the old stories about Australia being a penal colony that the British used, nobody could escape from it? Well, if they say it was a penal colony, trust me, they weren't there with, it's the size, it's bigger than the United States, Australia, or it's close. They weren't there with guards watching these people. They just dropped them off because they're not going anywhere. They just dropped them off. It's the size of the United States. They just dropped them off. Okay, they're not going. But if it was 5 miles away, some of the criminals that got dropped off would have the old naval charts from the Spanish or the Dutch or the English and all these colonial dynasties that ruled the world, depending on what part of history. They would have known that there was that tip of Australia at the top and islands, and they would have made their way and they would have tried it. But no, the story we hear about Australia is it's just you go there and there's nobody getting on, nobody getting off. And it certainly made sense, that story, as a kid, because you look at the map, it was in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's coming or going. New Zealand, to me, was higher than Australia. I'm not an expert at this, but I vaguely remember, okay, if you were to fly there, you'd come to New Zealand, still way far away from everything above it, like the islands of Indonesia, East Timor, China. But I put New Zealand a little bit above Australia and maybe a little to the left. That's what I remember. Now, New Zealand is lower and closer to Antarctica. So that's a huge one for me. But remember, in trying to figure out what this thing is, the evidence, the Sherlock Holmes clue left is, even though the Mandela effect will call it a change, how is it possible we have no interbreeding between those groups that should have interbred? If it's a reality change, then there shouldn't be these anomalies in reality. Another one that's similar to that is the monkeys of the Rock of Gibraltar. Now, to me, the Rock of Gibraltar should be, I don't know what you call it, the Mediterranean Strait, in the ocean, I know it was always close between. You could always ferry from Morocco to Spain. You could take a ferry, but now it looks ridiculously close. I mean, anybody in a rowboat on a calm day could row it. It's ridiculously close, and the Rock of Gibraltar is attached to Spain. And there are these monkeys, this colony of monkeys. The old story is the Moors, hundreds of years ago, the Moors dropped a colony of monkeys off there. Well, the monkeys that are indigenous and never leave the Rock of Gibraltar make sense if the Rock of Gibraltar is in the middle of the Mediterranean, because the monkeys ain't going anywhere. They're not good swimmers. But it's attached to Spain. So one asks, well, why didn't the monkeys, instead of looking around and there's hardly anything to eat on the Rock of Gibraltar, you look at it as just rock and dust, and well, what the hell did they do? They would have made their way into rich, fertile Spain. There would have been monkey colonies in different places. They wouldn't just be on the rock. It doesn't make any sense. So if there's a reality change where the rock in this reality is part of Spain, okay, I don't care legally if it's part of the UK or if it's its own entity, whatever. It's neither here nor there. Although it does bring up a good point I'll mention in a moment. The monkeys wouldn't still be isolated to it. The monkeys would have gone into Spain 150, 250 years ago. So it doesn't make any sense. If you say the Spanish killed the monkeys because nobody wants a monkey in their backyard, well, like the way the Americans killed the wolves, well then I don't know, why'd they stop at the Rock of Gibraltar? If they're going to kill them, kill them. It just doesn't make any sense. The other thing is we see wars were fought, or at least skirmishes, between Britain, I'm going to say the UK, it's not the UK, Britain, the royals, and the ancient Queen Elizabeth and King Henry, whatever, and the Spanish, Isabella, whatever. So they fought over the little area of Gibraltar, which is like a desolate rock. You can't grow an ear of corn on it. It's worthless, useless. And I think the UK had rights to it, or territory, until, I don't know, somewhat recently. Why would the UK give a shit? Again, it's just this rock that there's nothing there. Why would the UK care about carving out a little part of Spain? Why would the Spanish allow it? They were always powerful. In other words, they're not going to... What if just the, I don't know, the Venezuelans combined with the Cubans and all the other Latin American countries just had to have Daytona Beach, Florida? That's it. They just had to have it. First of all, why would they give a shit about it? This is a very similar analogy. And they're going to fight wars between the United States colonies, and the United States would never allow it. They'd say, look, if it takes the last man, you're not taking a little part of what's our land. You're not going to have it. But they did have it. And the Spanish recognized it. It doesn't make any sense. See, these types of clues can be used to figure this shit out. If it's a reality ripple and everything is reset and the past is completely restructured, you wouldn't have these anomalies, nor would you have all the residual evidence you find in newspapers or whatever. People have tattoos of the lion or the lamb when it never existed. It's the lion shall lay down with the lamb, the bear shall eat, preserve what once was. The bear shall eat grass, the child shall play on the hole of the asp. And people have the whole, they know the whole, and there shall be ever peace on God's mountain. I don't know, something like that. But they have the whole line. They know what it was right down to the word, and none of it ever existed. It's not just the first part, the lion and the lamb. There's three other parts, and the bear shall eat grass, the child shall play on the hole of the asp, blah, blah, blah. So it's this shit. These are the clues. what comes out of the Mandela effect, that if we ever have any chance of understanding what it truly is, it is very disappointing this community doesn't use these clues. You know, if CERN recreated reality, well, how come there isn't a group of, 20, 30,000 people in northern Australia that are a blend, a species blend, a mulatto blend between the Papua New Guineans and the Aborigines? Well, nobody ever wanted to go anywhere. No, man, call it what you want, mankind has always set out to find new places, and there's no way they would have been. And we're not talking about Australia was way down the middle of nowhere, thousands of miles down, and then it moved up, and it looks funny, but it's still 480 miles from Papua New Guinea. No, it's on a calm day. There's some Papua New Guinean that existed at some point that could swim it using the islands, no doubt about it. So, from the perspective of geography changes, the other really strange one to me is that, remember the boot of Italy? Don't remember some huge landmass, again a rowboat away, I guess it's called Sicily, is there. I don't remember the huge landmass right off the tip of the boot. I remember movies where, oh, there's the boot, or even a movie, faking a view from space. You could see the boot. There was no giant cinder-blocked kick, in my opinion. It looks funny to me. I remember Iceland being a little... you would come to Iceland first, above Maine, and then Greenland. Now it's the opposite. So South America is pulled over towards Africa. And as a kid, I remember you could always kind of struggle to see how, I can kind of see how this continental drift thing that the teacher talks about, how, if you really use your imagination, you could see how South America fit into Africa. And now it's just like, well, they're right there together, and it's just like you're about to put two pieces of a puzzle together. You can see how it's not a struggle anymore. So why would I have struggled? Or I was kind of remember being proud of myself that I could see that. Well, they're so close now, any fool could see it. So the other thing is, Cuba is ridiculous to me. I remember a good-sized island, but a pretty small island off the coast of Florida. It's so gigantic. It seems to be like half the size of Florida. I haven't looked at a map in a while, but it's only a small sailboat away from Mexico. No, seriously. You could go to the tip of Cuba, and I don't know if you'd reach Belize or Mexico. I think it's Mexico that's right there. But on a calm day, and if you knew there were no storms, you could take easily a small, single-person sailboat, like a sunfish. You could make it to Mexico. I don't know, in a day? No, it wasn't. Cuba wasn't pulled all the way over to Mexico. What? So things like that really do, bother me and a lot of people. And that's another major clue in and of itself. It's not just a box changing on a DVD or a slogan on a VCR tape or in the movie itself. It's continents. So, but if you look at reality more along the lines that the way I've begun to look at it, like a simulation and an illusion of some sort, a matrix of some sort, if it's all digital in some way or fluid, then there is no difference between life is like a box of chocolates and moving Australia. One is not easier or harder to accomplish than the other. If you think of it as the Sims or a video game, or a way a video game designer would remap the animation, it's just the same. It's all the same. Anything's possible if reality is some sort of simulation, which I believe it is at this point. There's just the Mandela. It's almost, I don't see how anybody can be Mandela affected and not believe, or at least give absolute serious consideration, that this has to be some sort of hologram or matrix or simulation of some kind, with the opposite side of that being nothing is real the way they say it's real, or we were led to believe it's real. But it's funny, over the years I've got a lot of comments that people that say they were Mandela affected, but really let me have it when I had a video on this must be some sort of matrix or an illusion, or like the holodeck in Star Trek. Well, how can you say your DVD has changed, where now Dolly has no braces, and so there's a change in your reality, but this can't be a matrix, it has to be real? I never understood the amount of people that, I mean, one goes with the other, lockstep. So anyway, oh boy, it's been long. I hope this has been somewhat helpful to a few people. And oh, there's one last part. No, it's very important, probably the most important part. Why people get so angry and upset when you bring the topic up. Now, we know for a fact, I'm so glad I didn't end the video. We know for a fact this is real. It's a real phenomenon. And again, use this as a clue. Line up all the clues, write them down on index cards and put all the clues down. Why would a phenomenon, when you bring it up to people, why do they get so upset, so angry? And nobody that doesn't see it is open-minded to it. Very, very few. I have one neighbor that is. And I want to say they almost get violent. We've seen that, but they're not throwing punches. They get their dander up, So we've seen that. Let me just see who's calling me. Oh, I'll call him back. So the way to use that as a clue is growing up in the truth community, trying to expose things like 9/11 to people, which, again, once you look at it for 2 or 3 minutes, the official story is ridiculous. 19 guys with box cutters. I mean, come on. But that's not the point of this video. But when you bring that up to people that don't want to hear it, they react the same way. So the clue in trying to use it is, why would people react the same way to when you bring the Mandela effect up to when you talk about 9/11 truth, for example? They do the same thing. So it's almost like there's something else going on, some sort of, you call it a Wi-Fi mind control or brainwashing of some kind. The best way I could explain it, if I had to put my chips on one explanation, is people generally have been brainwashed in some way, whether it be through the airwaves, or, I know this sounds ridiculous to some people or conspiratorial, but obviously in this area I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I'm pretty well versed. You have to be open-minded to these things. So whether it be subliminals, whatever it is, they're told, or the way people, the Clockwork Orange, he was being conditioned. People are being conditioned to, when somebody presents an idea that's outside of the mainstream box, to get very angry at it, to reject it, to get their goat up, to get what I call violent, although they don't just start throwing punches, you know what I mean. So it might happen, if they're brainwashed to do that, then the Mandela effect is outside of the box. So they've been programmed to put their barriers up and shout it down. If someone says 19 guys with box cutters didn't bring the whole trillion-dollar defense industry to its knees with, for 3 years of recovery because of 9/11, and something else happened, again, that's outside the box. So people are, through their Clockwork Orange conditioning, they put their guard up. So in this sense, the Mandela effect might be simply, I don't know, going along for the ride, or a victim of this. I'm not explaining it properly, but this type of mind control was created in the population potentially so people don't look at all the stuff the crazy conspiracy people like me put forth. It's to put a wall up, and they might be saying, the controllers might be saying, what we taught the population to do, they're doing it on the Mandela effect. They're putting a wall up. It's amazing how that's working out. Maybe that's to the controllers, our controllers. I don't like to give them that credit, but you know who I'm talking about. Maybe it's to their benefit or not to their benefit. I don't know. But in that sense, again, the Mandela effect might be kind of going along for a ride. Of course, the people that can see the Mandela effect are generally more open to this type of conspiracy, understanding the way the world really works, and they generally can see a lot of this. So those people that I saw give their testimony in the fearful and angry Mandela effect testimony, a lot of those people, I bet, would be very open to me saying to them, have you ever truly considered what 9/11 is? And that's just one of 100 things that isn't real the way they say it is. I think a lot of those people would be open to it. That's just my guess. So again, write down the symptoms. Write down the clues on a 3x5 card. And at the very least, you can eliminate the possible causes using the clues. You could have so many clues that you maybe can eliminate CERN. Say, well, if this is a true resetting of reality, and CERN did it, well then why did the monkeys still live on a rock with no food called Gibraltar? Why did the Spanish allow the Brits to even own a part of what should be Spain? See, some of these things don't hold water, and you can use that you potentially could use that very thing as a clue to say it couldn't be CERN. If CERN, an object or a machine of man, merged a timeline, or, well, I'm going to go back, because if it is merging in another timeline, as some people have suggested, maybe it's merging in some elements without other elements. Why do I assume all elements you take all or none? It's like you go up and you want a small scoop of chocolate. The person doing the scooping say, well, to get a scoop of chocolate, you have to take every single scoop. You have to take it all. You can't just take a scoop of chocolate. Maybe that's we have to guard against these types of false bias as well. Maybe elements of another reality can be merged in, while other elements don't get merged in. I don't know. Anyway, there's no cause for being depressed. It has opened up the wonders of this universe, of which I think we can experience much, 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 much more of it once we get out of this 3D prison. What I want to do in my life is I don't want to come back here again. I want to work on connecting to, another aspect of myself, raising vibration, connecting, abandoning ego, abandoning the part of me in the frontal lobes society is bred to just want more Corvettes, slice of pizza, and a blowjob, to abandoning ego, connecting to inner soul, spirit, and what truly we are here to do. And it's not about getting a starter home so you can upgrade to a bigger home, and a bigger home, then you might have room to buy that Corvette. No, that's not what life is all about. And if you want to get the hell out of here, you got to abandon what the ego tells you to do, because that ain't the way. That is not the way. This life is a blink of an eye. It's a joke from a cosmic perspective. From a cosmic perspective, looking down, or our lifespan is no different than the mayfly, lives 24 hours. Even to like the Rock of Gibraltar, something that's been around supposedly billions of years, to anything like that's perspective. Forget the sun and the cosmic nature. Our life is no different to these types of things than our life to the mayfly. It's no different. It's so infinitesimally different. I mean, it's again like if you filled up your SUV and all you had was $80, 420s, and it was $80.01. I mean, is the gas guy, is he going to run after you or make sure you go home to get the penny? That's actually significant in a factor of 1,000,000 compared to the cosmic, approach of how short and ridiculous our lifespan is compared to a fly or a mayfly or a fruit fly. So, I mean, we're conditioned by the society to put too much stock in this lifetime. Well, we should do, if we have kids, we should do the best we can for them. We should help our fellow man. We should, but it's so short and ridiculous that to spend it like, oh man, I think I can buy that second Corvette. I mean, just it's so absurd. When the ego, what the ego wants us to do, the ego, it's likely a trap, ego trap. Attach to this world via the ego, and you're likely attaching your spirit or soul to this world. Jacob Marley, truth in media, truth in art, truth in movies. Jacob Marley comes into Scrooge. Scrooge, these are the chains. These are the chains I forged in life that I now carry in death. So, we all probably have forged chains. So the goal of this life is to get these chains off of us, and potentially a spirit or a soul not weighed down with chains can go do something else. I assure you, running around this ridiculous reality looking for the next raise in your job, adding on another garage or to make it a 3-car garage so you can get the next Corvette, getting the new high definition television because your 60 inch is just old news, and looking for the next blowjob, that ain't gonna remove the chains. Potentially, driving home at 2 in the morning and it's raining and the poor little guy is broken down, he's changing a tire, stopping him and helping him, that's probably a start on getting rid of the chains. All right. Might as well go. Anybody want to go? We'll go an extra minute and a half and go the full hour now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Which provides us kind of opportunity, if we the people can get our act together, to actually add to the chaos, disruption. So you remember when Rahm Emanuel said, don't let a good, what did he say? Don't let a good, what did he say? Don't let
the disaster go to waste.
Something like that. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I used to say, these people create chaos. And I would say, he who has a plan in the midst of chaos will win. Because the chaos that is created is purposeful. And it's for the purpose of delivering a set of circumstances that will lead to a different policy. And so if we can formulate our plan, my campaign manager used to say, Cynthia, make your plan, work your plan, and your plan will work for you. So if we can also formulate a plan and take advantage of this chaotic, disruptive period now, maybe we actually can win. Because I'm reminded that in the 1960s, you see, we almost won. We, the progressive people, even though, I was a bit young at the time, but I still consider myself, those were my people, right? The anti-war people, the Chicano movement people, the Puerto Rican independence people, the Black movement people, all those people were my people, right? And some kind of way, the synergy was such that the US government, deep state, had to reveal itself through these deep events because we were winning. And we almost won. And that's why we had that decade of the 60s of assassinations of US people that took place because we were winning. So now imagine if we could put ourselves back in a position where we can almost win again. Now, so I've been thinking about how can we win? what are the conditions that are necessary for us to win? Now, you asked me another question, and I went off in a completely different tangent because I told you it's painful to think about the things that I went through. But what I went through pales in comparison to what Julian is going through, right? And so we just, and I look at people like Seligman. He was a former governor of Alabama. And the Republicans they couldn't believe, he's a Democrat, so the Republicans couldn't believe a Democrat would win and actually, excite people in Alabama, of all places. That's theirs. And so they filed some trumped up charges. You know what happens? And he went to prison. And, you think about, so my mom, and many of the things that I've done, my mom says, she's surprised they didn't kill me. They tried to put me in prison, but that didn't work, because I was honest. But what we've also seen is that they're not above lying about you. They will create something, fabricate something just as an excuse. And we know this from COINTELPRO as well, where they would put people in prison. They call it bad jacketing on trumped up charges. They would infiltrate first they charge you with charges that weren't true, and then they would infiltrate your legal team to make sure you didn't get good representation. And they did all of these things. And so, I got maligned. I was a caricature of me was created, and that creation was then put forward as being me. And so I would go places and people would say, "Oh, you're nothing like what I thought you were." And it's because the media lied, and they continue to lie. And either they lie by commission or they lie by omission, but they are lying. So what's happening to Julian is that taken to an extreme. I mean, John Kiriakou did the right thing and went to prison. So thank goodness Julian is not in a prison cell, because then that introduces a whole nother set of circumstances that we would have to deal with, in terms of dealing with the legal system, which is criminal for its injustice.
Absolutely.
So at least Julian's situation is purely, totally within the realm of politics. And so if we exercise our politics, the thought would be that we can save his life. Now, I believe that Julian's life is in danger. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that these people, based on what they've done in the past, I know they don't care anything about human life. They don't care anything about the Constitution. They don't care anything about people's rights. They don't care anything about the American people. They don't care anything about anything except what it is that they specifically care about. That's it. And they will use any means. I was almost better to say like Malcolm X, any means necessary in order to get what they want. And I guess that's why Malcolm said we need to be willing to use any means necessary to stop them. So yes, there is a price, and a lot of people don't realize it. I mean, I remember Indira Singh at the 911 People's Commission, the very first thing that we did of 911 Truth. And Indira Singh, who worked on the PTEC, which became Promise Software, she, and eventually she had to go into hiding and nobody's heard from her since. So she described her life. I remember Madame Bandao, who told the truth about what was going on in Democratic Republic of Congo and the pillage that was taking place. United Nations decide they're going to investigate and make a report about what's going on and who's doing it. And she had to go into hiding for 3 years. So even though you start out just doing your job, you start out with a conviction, you're a journalist, you just want to tell the truth, you're dedicated and committed to writing what is without the editorial commentary, just writing what is. And then you write what is, and one time you do it and do it and do it, and then one time it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong time. And so then all of a sudden, the world comes crashing down on you. That's what's happened to Julian. What a brilliant idea to provide a platform, a safe way for people who want to tell the truth about what their government is doing to be actually able to do that. That's simple. It's really simple. But so anyway, and you know, the idea that Hillary Clinton, I'm happy she's not in the White House because, you know, she's the one said something about sending a drone. I mean, you know, this is the mentality of these kind of people. And they don't need to be anywhere near public policy. Now she wants to run again, I understand. I mean, you know, let's deliver to her in 2020 what was delivered to her in 2016, but that's a different story. So anyway, yeah, and so you can get caught up in something. You're just doing your job. You're doing what everyone has told us. We instill in our children that you don't tell lies, you're honest. You know, this is what we instill in our children. So then when we actually do it, we get a hammer upside our head. So we have to protect WikiLeaks. We have to protect the platform. We have to protect Julian as best we can. And that's what you guys are doing.
And I think the context you bring up in showing all of these different people, you know, from across the decades that have been so punished for doing exactly that, for truth telling, it really shows into a really strong, it gives perspective to the fact that this isn't something Julian has brought upon himself. And I think the media likes to make it all about his personality or him, and what you're doing and what you're discussing shows that it's nothing to do with him or his personality. It's what he's doing as in terms of his work, which has gotten so many other people equally, you know, punished. So I think that that's really helpful to discuss that.
Well, I had not read or seen any references to this being Julian's fault. Now that's ridiculous. Now I'll tell you one thing also, with all of this discussion about the child separations that are going on and, you know, the Democrats jumping up and down, you would think the Democrats would be jumping up and down about freedom of speech, the rights of journalists. You would think truth and governance, you know, you would think they would be jumping up and down for that. But no, okay. I just read, and I didn't know it, that Julian has children.
Exactly.
So now, this is like, okay, mommy, where's daddy? Well, he's not in prison. Daddy loves you, but he can't talk to you. He can't tell you he loves you. You can't go and hug him. This is like punishment of an extended. This is extended punishment, because now this is punishment of the family.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point to recognize. And it's one that I agree. I think a lot of people don't even know that Julian Assange, is a father and has a family. And so it's not only an egregious, trespass on his freedom of speech and ability to operate as a journalist. It's stopping him from speaking to his own family and friends. So it's as you said, it's that multifaceted sort of punishment that reaches out to even the family of people that are truth tellers.
That's right. That's
incredible.
Right. And so then, the thing that hurt me in my own situation, the thing that hurt me the most was that it was my family. It was my mom and dad who were punished, and my son. They were the ones who bore the punishment. It's okay if I do something, even if I do something that's right and it backfires some kind of way. If it backfires on me, then I have to grow up and accept that, and do some introspection and see, okay, is there a different way I could have done it, or if there was it, or whatever. But to watch my mom and dad and my child suffer because of something I did, it was unacceptable, and it was most painful. And so now we have to understand that this is wrong on so many levels. And one of those levels is that the innocent, the most innocent, are the most hurt.
That is so unfortunately true. And I think that when that happens, when a person's truth teller's family is the one that are targeted, it's really it goes to the deep state's opinion of that person as empathetic, that they would deeply feel towards their family. And so it's almost a backhanded compliment that you are assumed to be a good person. But because, it's just absolutely heartless, though, and unbelievable. And I think that when it comes to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, I think the public still, because of the propaganda narratives, do not understand the things that Assange has sacrificed and given up for the public benefit. And so I think that is something that is lost. And I hope that we bring that up a lot in these vigils, but outside of these vigils, I hope that people remember that.
Well, he didn't, this wasn't something he was able to put in his bank account, right? He didn't sell us out. He didn't sell out his values. He actually strengthened us, and he strengthened our professed values. So now how can that ever be bad? How can that be bad? How can that be, oh, you brought it on yourself? How can that ever be? So, I just think about being able to go to the WikiLeaks platform, and I can darn near find just about anything I want, And so now, is that a service or is that a disservice? That's a service. When the United States government it took them 19 years to admit that Eisenhower authorized the murder of Patrice Lumumba. It took the US government 19 years. We shouldn't have to wait 19 years for the truth. We shouldn't have to wait 19 years in order to be able to write history correctly. And this is what those documents allow us to do, to write history correctly. Now, there's a value in that, not just an academic sort of thing so that people who are in an ivory tower sitting over there spouting or spewing different theories can say, okay, well, I think it's this theory and it's more that theory and it's blah, blah, blah. No. Average, ordinary people now who are taxpayers can say, my government did this and I disagree with it. And therefore, I'm going to pay attention like I didn't pay attention before. So we've got more people as a result of WikiLeaks able to pay attention and tell the truth about what the US government does. That makes us stronger, and it's supposed to make us stronger. That should be applauded. That should not be punished.
Completely agree. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
But now what it shows us is that everything, I just did an interview, and the journalist entitled the conversation that we had, "It's All Fake." Basically, I have to borrow his title and say, now everything that my government says to me about respect for human rights, respect for individual rights, respect for the Constitution, everything they say is fake. They have been exposed in a way that makes it patently clear, not just the US government, but the UK government as well, and the Ecuador government. Now we can see. But like you said, and I want to hasten, that Ecuador is a victim in all of this as well, because I'm sure they've been leaned on. I'm absolutely certain they've been leaned on. So, but the US and the UK, man, these are some duplicitous governments. And what it informs me of is that I don't need to be just concerned about who I'm going to vote for in 2020. I need to be concerned about my entire political system. The US political system is corrupt. It is so corrupt that we need a whole new system. We need to start looking at different systems of governance, because the one we have now is built on a foundation of lies. That's what Julian's treatment informs us.
That is absolutely brilliant, a brilliant point, and I think that is so true. I hope that people listening really like to let that sink in, because that is exactly right. Exactly. Do you think in the near future, do you think there's any way that the public's response to this will make a real difference when it comes to reconnecting Julian and encouraging, basically also, as you said, when we view Ecuador as another victim in all of this, showing solidarity with them in some way? Do you think that is a good way forward? Or how do you think that this what hopefully will become a movement should do in order to actually make a difference?
I think, without a doubt, the reason that Julian is still alive is because of the public, the eyes of the public being focused like a laser on that building and what's happening inside that building. And thank goodness that building is there, because otherwise it might have been, remember Christopher Dorner? He's the man, the first man in the United States who had a drone pursue him inside the United States. So when Hillary jokes and said, well, maybe it wasn't even a joke, there's precedent for that. So there's no telling what would have happened if we didn't have that building. So I think the eyes of the public, what you guys are doing is so important, because people can tune in from all over the planet, and people can think for just a minute about Julian Assange. They can remember Julian Assange, And now we've got a theme song where we can hum the music, hum that tune about Julian Assange. So the culture is there, the eyes and the attention are there, the people are there. I would hate to think what would possibly be the case if this attention were not there.
That is a good point. And that's one of the reasons that, and I know Susie and I talked about this at the time. At first, we discussed having one giant event, and it, that would go as long as possible. But then we realized, well, if that's the end of it, if we have one giant event and then nothing else, it's too easy to let that go. And so that's right. So it also allows people, if they can't make it 1 month, to be with us the next month and work around schedules. But most of all, it refuses to allow this to slip through the cracks of the news cycle, which it would otherwise.
That's sure. Right. And I'm so glad that I've been able to participate 2 times now, because otherwise, if I were teaching, and I teach in Asia, so daylight is like nighttime over there, and everything is all twisted and turned around, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But because I've been able to take the semester off, I can participate, and I'm just so happy that you guys have included me in this, and I give my my little 2 cents worth. But at the end, it's like it helps me, because I feel as if I'm a part of something that's good, that I know is necessary. And I know that it helps other people to understand how important Julian Assange is. He's just a human being. And you think about our bodies are fragile. And if we don't get enough sun, we don't get enough exercise, we don't, so within this vessel, there's this huge brain of Julian's that was able to imagine all of this, platform and everything, the service that he provides. But at the end of the day, he's just a human being, and he's fragile, and we need to do everything we can. I remember at one point, somebody, they gave me, and I'm not really a religious person, but even though I went to elementary school and high school Catholic, going to mass every Friday and everything. But there was somebody who gave me, now I'm going to show how little I really know, but there's a saying like in the Bible where somebody's walking on the beach and they're making these footprints in the sand, and then the person is weak, and the person gets lifted up, but the walk continues. And so that's what we're doing now with Julian. The walk continues, and we hope that with our collective strength, that we're able to put him down gracefully on the beach, and then on that one glorious day, he will start walking himself.
That is beautifully, beautifully put. And I think that image is perfect. It's really, really inspiring. And I think that is the sentiment of the people that participate in this vigil, whether it's the tech people, the hosts, or the guests, and the people that are sharing it on social media and just watching. I think that's what we all want to be the outcome of this fight. And I hope that happens. I'm asking this of pretty much all of the guests, because we don't know whether Julian Assange will be able to see this, but in case he does, what would you tell Julian if he could be watching this? What would you express to him?
Wow. Well, what would I say? One, is that these live streams show you that you are not alone, even though we know that you are in that embassy alone. And we don't know what your conditions are because you've been cut off from us. But this is like an expression of love, really, you know? And there's lots of people who love you. So just understand that, Julian, that even though these days, I know you're counting the 24 hours in a day. And then you have to turn around and count the next 24 hours in a day. But remember that there are some people like Nelson Mandela who spent 27 years counting 24 hours in a day and then counting the next 24 hours and then came out and became president. So, President Assange, we are waiting for you.
That's a great one. Yeah, no, I think that the response to Julian Assange's current predicament needs to take the type of form that support for Nelson Mandela took in the 1980s and onwards. And I definitely take inspiration from that movement.
Yes, that's right.
We all need to have that type of solidarity. Are there any, we have about 10 minutes left in this segment. Is there anything else that we haven't covered or talked about that you'd like to get out to the audience and express today in particular?
Well, I don't think there's anything else. I took the opportunity to go on the WikiLeaks Twitter feed to see, what they're discussing, and they're showing the Lula is out of prison. Well, the judge ruled that he should be released immediately. And so that's good news. I remember Christina Kirchner said that Latin American populism was dead. And it certainly did appear that the progressive politics was just walking backwards. But every day, those 24 hours that we're alive, we have hope. I remember Afeni Shakur told me, first of all, you have to live. And that was Tupac Shakur's mom. She told me, first of all, Cynthia, you have to live. She wanted me out of politics. She didn't want me to have anything to do with politics because, she had seen too many of her friends in the Black Panther Party murdered, totally destroyed, lives destroyed. These are the things that come with this territory. You stand your values ground and you go against the powers that be. And so you become a hero, but you become a target. So she said, Cynthia, you have to stay alive. And so our first and foremost priority is to keep Julian alive. The rest we can handle. And the rest you guys can handle. You and Susie, I know y'all got it covered. So the rest we can handle. We just have to keep his spirits up and keep him aware that there is another day and there is a better day.
That is breathtaking, and the examples you've provided us of solidarity and the care towards fellow human beings that are suffering as a result of this corruption is really, really just breathtaking. So thank you for those sentiments. as someone who has worked in the political system, do you think that there is any chance that legislation could be passed that would somehow protect whistleblowers, or is the corruption in government far too far gone for that type of effort to be worth, pursuing?
Well, we can always hope that we could pass legislation that would protect whistleblowers. But we have to understand that right now, the environment is toxic. So we've got political operatives who are in charge of the media, and they will willfully lie and not tell the truth in order to advance a political cause. So we're in this kind of environment where even if we were able to get the legislation passed, the targeting, the public targeting of Julian has been so toxic that it makes it really difficult, even though it's our right to know and it's the right thing to do. And we do have some laws on the books, but these guys are criminals. And they will defy the law in order to pursue a political objective. That is why our situation is so toxic right now. So I think if we can get legislation passed, yes, let's push it. Let's draft it. Let's find some people to introduce it in the Five Eyes countries. All need to have it. But we also, on a deeper level, need to be thinking, okay, if these guys are duking it out, these deep state factions are duking it out, let's us figure out a way that we can wedge ourselves in there so that we can throw them off completely. Really, honestly, regime change, revolution is what we need.
I agree. And I think that what you're saying, the way that I'm hearing that is that before we would try, like, we can't trust legislation, even if it would pass, to be followed. And so that awareness of what the reality is that we're working with is so crucial to them being able to do anything about it. And I completely agree with that. And, it's unfortunate that things are as extremely corrupt as they are, but we are at least able to speak about it right now and recognize it in the way that we are.
That's right.
But thank you so, so much for visiting with us today and expressing the solidarity with Julian. It's absolutely an honor to speak with you. And as I said in the beginning, you are one of my absolute idols. So I'm so glad I've been able to speak with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And for everybody out there, just keep the faith. Keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on Julian.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. And I will I'll send you Julian Assange's address, and there's a link that I'll send so that we can get that letter writing impetus going.
Yes. Count me in on that. And also make sure you send me the link so I can post it around and I can hear the new theme song. Absolutely.
I will do that as soon as we're off air. I'll organize that. Thank you, Cynthia, so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us through this vigil. This is the longest vigil we've done so far, by far. And we will have a little break with the theme song again, and then we will bring on our next panelist. And I'm really excited to speak with them as well. So stick around for just 3 minutes and we'll be right back. Thank you.
my dreams. I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks. Doing hard time for these WikiLeaks. Trying to bring the truth out, man, it only gets you heat. And then they gag you. You don't get to speak. And when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit discreet. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Free speech, it's the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people of the red, white and blue, you keep them in bed. Seeing the sheep, keep them asleep. Deceiving the weak, keep seeking the leaks till you cease. And I see your defeat until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need a silence, any questioners, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey with my Mickey keeps dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets is what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults. They upset, they ended the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take aim and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life, make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need a solace, any questioners, you kill the messenger. When the vote count is irregular, you kill the messenger. You caught spying on a senator, you kill the messenger. Removing voters from the register, you kill the messenger. Need a solace, any questioners, you kill the messenger. They try to hit delete, the masses of the masses.
Welcome back, everyone. We are now here with the amazing George Galloway, who is a longtime MP and as well as an activist, a radio TV host, and just all-around amazing, amazing human being. We're so privileged to have him with us today. Thank you, George, for joining us.
The honor is entirely mine, and to share the stage, as it were, with the distinguished cast that you've had over this weekend is doubly an honor. But it would be an honor to stand on my own on a street corner and to proselytize for Julian Assange, one of the greatest men of the age, a man who should be a Nobel Prize laureate, not banged up in an exceedingly hot room, I've no doubt, in the Ecuador embassy, a political prisoner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So can you explain for our audience, for the sake of any of our listeners and viewers who don't know, what drew you initially to support WikiLeaks and Julian Assange? If you can tell us your personal journey in that, that would be wonderful.
Well, I was one of the leaders of the anti-war movement in Britain against the Iraq war. And so as such, I am one of those indebted to Julian Assange and his brothers and sisters who supplied WikiLeaks with secrets that should never have been secret, crimes that were being carried out in our name, on our dollar, under our flag. And if not for the courageous work of WikiLeaks and those who blew whistles all over the place on these crimes, our anti-war movement would have been weaker, and the pressure on our war leaders and post-war leaders, if they deserve the title leaders, would have been much less. So I don't follow WikiLeaks quite as closely as others on this vigil, and I especially don't follow their American work particularly closely. So I won't speak about that if that's okay. But I do want to say that Julian Assange and his friends blew the whistle on war crimes, on crimes against humanity. And it's the duty of every person, not least a journalist and broadcaster, to blow the whistle. And if we lived in a decent, civilized, sane world, the whistleblower would be the hero. The whistleblower would be the person to whom we paid tribute. But that happened to Julian. He has been maligned, slandered, hunted, and hunted down now to that little hot room in London that I spoke about. Nowadays, we can't see him, but in the times that I was able to see him, I felt I was in the presence of a great person, of a person like Dr. Cynthia was just talking about, a person of the caliber of the people that she was talking about, a person who was ready to pay the price for standing up for what's right, a prisoner of conscience, a political prisoner, an underdog soldier in the night, albeit one at a keyboard rather than in the hills or in the jungle somewhere, and no less worthy of everybody's respect. Now, I understand why the war industry, why the military-industrial complex, why the deep state in the United States and its satellite countries hate Julian Assange. I would expect no less than that. But what is more difficult to understand is how the useful idiots amongst the so-called liberal classes, the chatterati, who would normally be found on the side of whistleblowers, except when they're shopping them to the police and breaking up their hard disks, if you get my drift. How they have first abandoned, then turned on Julian Assange, shows them for what they really are, the conservative and liberal, two cheeks of the same backside, who in the end are loyal to the state we're in, when, as Dr. Cynthia was just saying, we'll never get out of the state we're in until we change the state we're in. And my goodness, Julian Assange has shown plenty of both.
Absolutely. And I think your point about the fact that he is bearing so much weight on behalf of everyone else, whether it's the whistleblowers that come to WikiLeaks or the public that benefits from the information that they publish, he is bearing the truth on his back.
And he's the one the one who's paying that price. The rest of us are at home with our families and enjoying life. And there's not a day goes by when I don't think of this Calvary which Julian is trapped in. And there's not a day in which indignation doesn't rise in my throat at the situation that he finds himself in. So the very least we can do is to stand up and be counted on his side. And paid something of a political price for it myself at the hands of the right-on and liberal classes. But I knew from the beginning that Julian was being set up. He was being set up in a classic trap that has been played out. It's in the playbook. It's been used many times. And so I never doubted for one moment Julian Assange's bona fides, his integrity. And he's having to show that integrity now every single day in the situation he's in.
How do you think the public should fight for Julian Assange, other than watching these types of vigils and tuning in and sharing them? What are some of the ways they can actively empower themselves in fighting for Julian Assange and his freedom?
We need to never allow a piece of disinformation to pass unchallenged. So I have the best part of 2 million followers on social media. Whenever I see the utterly false allegation about Julian and Sweden and rape and so on, I never allow it to stand. I challenge it every time. Sometimes even our own supporters make mistakes in not challenging. Someone just the other day, one of our supporters on Twitter, said the Swedes had dropped the charges. There were no charges. He wasn't charged. They refused to come to London and interview him as part of their inquiry into him. That's all there was, even though they had done so many times, even with murder suspects. And of course, you don't need to be Einstein to work out why they didn't want to come to London to conduct an investigation, to have an interview with him. They didn't want to because it would, as it did in the end, have to lead to the collapse of this entire line of investigation, of this false charge. And its only purpose was to get hold of Julian, to then extradite him to the United States. It's not about sexual matters or orientation or any of these other issues. It's about whether the United States deep state machine can get their hands on Julian Assange and silence him forever and punish him for the rest of his life, as they intended to do for decades with Chelsea Clinton, with Chelsea Manning, forgive me. They intended that we would never hear from her again until she was an old woman. And the same would be true of Julian. So sweep all these other things away. This is about the United States trying to punish Julian Assange, trying to silence Julian Assange. And he's already now, for the last few months, been silenced. He's being punished, of course, by his unjust incarceration by the British state. And people say to me all the time, this weekend, good comrades of mine said to me this weekend, look, why don't he just walk out? The answer is, if he walks out, the British will extradite him to the United States. If it was just walking out and facing whatever punishment there was for breaking bail conditions, of course, that would be a no-brainer. But as soon as he walked out, he'd be in British hands, and the United States would immediately demand his extradition to the United States to face indictments already prepared by secret grand juries alleging espionage and all kinds of damage to the United States so-called security. In fact, all he's ever done is by the United States and Britain and other countries in the US satellite orbit. And that's why he's a hero for me and will never, ever be a villain.
Yeah, I think the point you're making about the fact that these sexual abuse allegations and the investigation into that was such a feeble cover for the United States and the UK's persecution of Assange. And now we see very clearly that after that investigation is dropped, he is silenced after that point. And that makes him more and more obviously a political prisoner suffering persecution for his work, not for anything to do with his personality. So I think that's a really huge thing to discuss.
He's a prisoner of conscience, and he's a prisoner of our conscience. I don't mean to make him Jesus. He's not Jesus. He's not on a cross giving his blood for our sins. No. But he's a prisoner for our conscience because he was acting as a conscience for us. And we are not being punished, and he is being punished. And what a punishment it is. I've had the benefit of many times visiting him when his conditions were far, far better than they are now. And then they were extremely onerous. No walk in a yard, no sight of the sky, no breath of fresh air, no unsupervised time. It's wonderful that the former president of Ecuador had the courage to give Julian asylum, and the diplomats in the embassy for a long time did their best to make Julian Assange as comfortable as possible. But even with all their efforts, it was a terrible, punitive incarceration that he had been subjected to. And that's when he could receive us. That's when we could take him in, cream cakes and bottles of lemonade. That's when he could have company, when his friends and people who admired him could keep his spirits up. He's now in a solitary confinement, more one in solitary confinement anywhere in the world. Even the Rivonia prisoners were able to walk out in the yard on Robben Island. They were able to fraternize with each other on Robben Island. And of course, the length of time they were incarcerated was far more than Julian. But it's been more than 5 years already. And now he can't walk anywhere, and he can't fraternize with anyone, even his own mother and father. Imagine. Even the worst prisoner in the world, even a mass murderer in a jail, can phone home in the telephone box. Julian can do none of these things. He doesn't even know we're talking to each other now. He doesn't know how our hearts are beating for him now. He doesn't know how much we miss him, how much we love him. He's cut off completely from us, from society. This is a very, very big crime. And I'm deeply ashamed that our government is using our taxes to implement this crime.
Absolutely.
Sorry, emotional there.
No, that's exactly. I think that without that emotion, nothing will really change. I think people have to really conceptualize and let it sink in the degree of suffering that he has endured before this additional isolation was put into place. As Susie Dawson wrote, as many people have noted, in 2016, you know, his doctors were warning about his health and the severe pain that he's in physically, much less this new emotional and mental pain from isolation. Absolutely horrendous. And I don't think, and as you said, even prisoners would have the space to walk in a yard, and even prisoners get basic medical care that Julian Assange can't receive. So it's beyond ludicrous. He's never been charged publicly with anything, and this is the way that he's being treated.
He was not a well man even back then.